Steel talk. We're going to talk about what's the makeup of the steel, but more importantly, the elements that are in it and what do they do. Everyone hears, these words. Oh, chromium. Oh, carbon. Oh, what do they do? Like, what are the attributes to the steel? So, first is carbon. Obviously, it's the most important for steel. It gives, steel its characteristics of, being a steel. And it also raises the strength, the hardness, and resistance to wear and abrasion. So if you have just, let's say this Leatherman was just casted in iron. It's cast iron with a little bit of, elements in it. And we're going to, tighten a bolt and we're really cranking on it, it's going to snap. If we have a carbon addition, we're going to get a little bit more strength, and we can take this up to a lot higher hardness than we would, a cast iron. It also lowers the toughness. So strength and toughness are not the same thing. Strength is like yield strength or tensile strength, things like that. Toughness is like impact. Impact strength. Impact toughness. So it lowers that toughness and it lowers the machinability. So it's going to lower the way we can machine, let's say, a knife. So we're grinding along, and we don't have any carbon. We can plow right through this very, very easily. We have our carbon addition. We can, bring the hardness, the strength, resistance to wear up. It's going to be less machinability. So that's carbon. Most important. Next we have chromium. So chromium, what that does is it also increases the strength, hardness, and hardenability. But it also helps with corrosion resistance in a way that it creates a chromium oxide sort of layer. And it does that through, its atoms and protons, neutrons, electrons, stuff like that. I mean, this is at microscopic levels, and it puts like a coating on it on your knife. Basically, this is a stainless steel, so it's going to put a coating on it, and it's going to be less, it's going to resist corrosion better than, say, just a plain carbon steel. Oops, I'm bleeding. Anyway, so it also has the ability to be a carbide former in the sense that it seeks out, carbon in the steel and tries to bond with it and creates wear resistant carbide. Next is cobalt. So I feel like cobalt is like not talked about a ton, but also there's a lot of misconceptions. Some people think it's only for, steels with high hot hardness and stuff like that. It is. However, it does help increase the hardness and permits higher quenching temps. It also creates, it also increases red hot hardness, and often it's combined with tungsten to intensify, other elements within the steel. A lot of the times you'll see like K390, for instance, has tungsten in it, but I think it has cobalt. I'm not sure. Anyway, that's a bad example. Rex 45 has both cobalt and tungsten. It can get very, very hard. It can also resists wear very well. However, the hardness is the thing. It gets harder. And it gets harder at higher temps. If we were to blast through stuff and we're creating a lot of friction, hence high-speed steels, it can perform at a higher speed, hence a higher temperature. So it needs to have that hardenability. And cobalt, can accommodate that. Next we have columbium, or more commonly known as niobium. It's used as a stabilizer to localize precipitation of carbides at grain boundaries. What does that mean? All right, in layman's terms, it slows down the growth of the grains in the steel by pinning those grain boundaries. So let's say that this mat right here, each one of these blocks were a grain within the steel. So what it's going to do, it's going to pin this area, this area, this area, this area, and then those grains aren't going to grow in those areas either as quickly or as much. I'm not sure, you know, what the rate of growth is as far as that, but it pins those areas and slows that grain growth down. So if you have steels with, you know, not high niobium, but enough niobium, so S35VN, steels like that, it's helping with the grain. However, you can't put a ton of niobium in there because then you're unable to create a powder metal because it'll clog the nozzle, and it's not going to, you know, that process isn't going to work. So, and the reason why it clogs that is because we're heating our steel up to melting temperature. It's combining with carbon, you know, forming a bond and clogging up the nozzle. If we were to remove that carbon, run that with a higher niobium, we could do that, and then we could add carbon later, and then, you know, press everything into an ingot. And we can go over powder metallurgy at some other point because I'm not very keen on it, but that's what it is. Basically, it helps with grain growth. It forms carbides. It's the second strongest carbide, or hardest carbide rather, to vanadium. Next we have copper. Copper's in steels, but it's in a low amount. It's beneficial for corrosion resistance, but it's also detrimental to most everything else. And it's often added in low amounts to help with that corrosion resistance. So you're not often going to see copper, you know, max out or anything like that. It's there, and it helps a little bit, but we're not seeking out copper in our steels. Next we have manganese. It's a deoxidizer, and degasser. It reacts with sulfur to form a magnesium sulfate. As we know from the first video, we don't want a lot of sulfur in our steel. We don't want any sulfur in the steel, really, unless we want it to be easier to machine. However, magnesium is there to kind of, you know, scoop that up and kind of turn it into something beneficial. It also increases strength, hardness, and hardenability, decreases scaling and distortion throughout the steel making process. So that's manganese. Next is moly, or molybdenum. It increases strength at high temps, hardness, hardenability. It also intensifies other elements, helps form carbides, and increases red hot hardness. So high moly steels are M steels, M1, M4, M15, M45, those steels. It helps with these characteristics. Also, it forms our molybdenum or moly carbide, and M6C carbide along with tungsten gives us that wear resistance in certain steels. Next we have blood, sorry, don't look. Next we have nickel. And what nickel does is it increases strength, hardness, but without sacrificing toughness. It also helps with corrosion resistance in high chromium steels. So we're going to be adding this into, you know, high chromium steels. I'm not sure if it's in, you know, our tool steels or anything like that, but It's there, it's beneficial, and don't think of it like a nickel like you are using to spend at the store. It's not that kind of nickel. It's not the same. It'd be like how your kids, if they get their ears pierced, then they're allergic to nickel, because that is like pure nickel, you know, what do you call it? Kind of anodized onto the fucking earring to help with corrosion resistance. It's like that. Next is phosphorus, increased strength and hardness. It also can cause a cold shortness in steel. Cold shortness is basically a tendency for brittleness. So if you have a lot of phosphorus, it can get brittle in certain amounts. Think of it like sulfur, like we talked about in the first video. We don't want a lot of sulfur because at hot hardness or high temperatures, it can cause brittleness. And that's what phosphorus does, but it also helps with, you know, that increase in strength and hardness in certain levels. They have all this shit figured out. Like, they're not going to jack it up with phosphorus and be like, fuck you guys, ha ha ha. Not like that. Next we have is silicon. It's a deoxidizer, degasser. It increases strength, both yield strength and tensile strength. Obviously, you know, silicon is not the valley where, you know, all the nerds live. Nerd! It's also an element, and it's sort of, I don't know, it's pretty hard element. But yes, it helps increase strength, yield and tensile, and helps with hardness. So it's good to have silicon in there. You want silicon in there. Next we have sulfur. Fucking sulfur can fuck off, honestly. But it helps with machinability. So if you get your T15, CPM T15 steel, will have a HS at the end of it. It's a high sulfur. So they added a little bit more sulfur to help with machinability. It can also, too much can cause brittleness at red hot temperatures. So again, we're going to have that moly in there to help extract that, or the manganese in there to help extract that, turn it into magnesium sulfate, and boom, bada bing, you know. Next we have tungsten, and tungsten is a great one if it would fucking bond with stuff. It's so fat. But basically it increases strength, wear, hardness, toughness, and it's superior for hot working and cutting at high temps. So high speed steels are going to have tungsten in them. Yes, they make a difference, but no, they don't form carbides like the way we want them to, and very, very hard carbides. But they help with these other aspects: strength, wear, toughness, things of that nature. We want tungsten in there. Next we have our God element there, vanadium. And that's going to increase strength, wear, hardness, and resistance to shock. Not like electricity, but like, you know, shocking the steel from different temperatures and stuff like that. It also retards grain growth, permits higher quench temps, enhances red hot properties of high speed steels. So vanadium is very good. High vanadium is very good. Love it. Also, vanadium and niobium dissolve in the steel at very, very high temps, so they will maintain and do their job in those high temps as well. Good to have those two. Also, in working together, very good to have those two. And the way these elements all react with each other are different in their own right. There's a lot of articles online you can read about it. Obviously, you know, Knife Cylinders is a very good resource for these types of things. We got all these different elements, and alone they do their thing, but then together they also do things. So you have to think about it like that. And that's why we see different levels in different steels for different purposes, for different things. And we have two other ones that are also added to some steels. I haven't seen them in many knife steels, but we have tantalum and we have titanium. I've seen titanium in a steel. I forget the name of the steel. Basically, it's just nickel and titanium, and it's apparently fucking NASA makes ball bearings out of it. They have a machine that actually specifically was created to test the crushing strength of ball bearings, and this steel, this nickel titanium combined steel, actually broke the fucking machine. So titanium is very, very fucking hard. And both of these elements, they stabilize and form carbides, and they also help with grain control. So in the sense of niobium and vanadium, they also help with grains. I think tantalum, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, forms a very, very hard carbide, like the tungsten carbide. And there's like zirconium carbides and all this other shit too. Like, are very, very hard on the fucking scale. So they're not in our knife steels, but they're in certain steels for certain applications, I'm sure. Also as cemented carbides, which is a different thing altogether. So yeah, that's what those elements are. That's what they do. Look them up. You can also look at other articles to see how they interact with each other. For instance, niobium and titanium combined together do a very good job, again, with grain growth. Things like that. Everything's in there for a reason. A lot of these guys just didn't fucking... I mean, I'm sure back in the day they just threw elements together and were like, fuck it, let's just see what it does. But now they have a very, very good idea through the years of what these things do in different levels and stuff like that. And hopefully, you know, we get some fucking even crazier steel in the future. Who knows? Get some fucking... Throw some fucking radioactive... Throw some fucking uranium in there, plutonium, and see what that fucking shit does. I'm kidding. But, you know... It's cool to see all these fucking steels that we have now, and still we bitch about wear resistance. I don't know. I don't get it. We want a fucking steel that will cut forever and we never have to sharpen, but yet we're always fucking sharpening shit all the time. Love to sharpen. I don't know. Can't make anyone happy. No respect, you know? But yeah, that's the elements of the steel. That's somewhat what they do. You can also look it up online if you want to get deeper into it. But yeah, those are the things. Anyway, hope you guys have a good weekend. Had a good weekend. We can, you know, we got some videos coming up. I got some Maximate coming up. Got some... Don't know what I'm going to talk about next Sunday, but if you guys want me to talk about anything specific, I'll look it up and research it like I did for this, and I'll just discuss it in the simplest form possible. So that's that. Thanks for watching.